And the crazy part about it is, like, everybody who's calling him a culture vulture has all reason to call him a culture vulture, because at the end of the day, he has not done anything for the culture.
On September 2nd, 2025, Bobby Afhoff decided to come back to podcasting, and her new show is called Not This Again, which is different from her earlier show, The Really Good Podcast. And guess who came on the scene this time? Drake. Now, of course, these two have worked together before, but that's for a whole nother conversation. What was interesting in this particular conversation was the fact that Drake felt very bad about something.
You're a culture vulture, or like like people will describe the collaborative efforts that I've put forth and the artists that I've picked up and lifted up or shine a light on as me taking, they'll put a negative spin on it and try and tell me, that it's a self-serving thing or whatever. And I think I get really sensitive about that. And I think at that moment I was just like, well, you know what? Then don't even worry about it.
Now, in this instance, Drake is upset that people call him a culture vulture, but Drake is arguing that he's done so much for the culture. He's worked with so many people in the industry. He's brought so many people into the game, and why people are calling him a culture vulture, he just doesn't understand. However, there have been some people to disagree with Drake on this topic.
When we call you a culture vulture, it isn't, because you tried something new. It's because you changed who you were to match all of the different vibes that Drake wanted to be.
Now, what can be implied here is that, listen, Drake, we're not calling you a culture vulture because we feel a certain way about you. We're calling you a culture vulture because you changed who you were as an artist. Let me give you an example of a group that stayed true to themselves. Remember Bone Thugs and Harmony? Nobody rapped like Bone Thugs and Harmony or sung like them. It was very unique. So if they ever collaborated with somebody else, win or lose, or in the business or not, when you heard Bone Thugs and Harmony, you heard Bone Thugs and Harmony. And this is the case the young man makes again.
Yay, for all that he is, like every album, for a while, he was trying a new thing. He wasn't stealing from different cultures. He was expanding his palette, but it always sounded like him. You know what I mean? Like, and even if we're going to go to just trying new things, right? Like, every time Cardi B is on a record with somebody else, like when she was doing stuff with Megan sounds like Megan on every record. Cardi sounds like Cardi on every record.
So he talks about different people: Yeezy, Cardi B, Meg Thee Stallion. He would also talk about Sexy Red. He said even with Yeezy or Kanye West, even though he was trying to find himself as an artist, it was different, right? It was still something that was added new to the game. Cardi B is the same. Meg Thee Stallion is the same. But however, Drake's creative DNA tends to change. Now, how do we know this? Let's talk about UK grime and drill. Now, I lived in Europe for 6 or 7 years, and I can tell you that grime was getting popular in Poland and is very, very popular here in Africa. But there was a time where the UK rappers were rapping like Americans and nobody liked it. And a lot of folks in America don't like the UK style of rap, but here's the situation. They made it for themselves, and believe it or not, their style is copied. And what Drake did is he started collaborating with some of the UK's best artists, Skepta, Gigs, and other stuff. And then after the collaboration, he started using UK slang, UK beats. It wasn't just Americans saying that he was biting their style. You had people in the UK scene accused him of jumping on their wave after it became globally popular. If we go to Caribbean dancehall and Afro beats, we look at tracks like One Dance, Controller, and Come Closer with Wizkid that lean heavily on dancehall and Afro beats. Now, again, people are saying, where were you when their genre was just starting, but now it's hot, and then basically you're getting on it. We could talk about the Memphis and Houston influences that were early in this year. I mean, he was leaning into the Houston's chop and screw sound and the Memphis rap game. Now, his dad, I believe, is from Memphis, but still, he's not from Memphis. He's from Canada, and his mom is Jewish.
Got him!
Now, Drake is just like Diddy in many kind of ways.
Hold up.
Without the cheek clapping. Diddy and Drake, they have stood the test of time. They evolve with what is hot, all right? Some rappers don't, but Drake and definitely Diddy was always good at this. Drake cosigns or works with up and coming artists or sounds after they start taking off locally. Now, while he basically does bring them up to, his platform, people will say that he only swoops in once it's safe and mainstream. Like I said, it's not like you're going out there and you're finding out like the hyphy music. I'm from Northern California. When Mac Dre and EA Ski and the Jacka, artists like that, Keek the Sneak was, doing the hyphy stuff. Then E40 came in, he got some dreads and he started really getting off the hyphy train, and people were saying the same thing about him, right? And there are some people who agree with this.
I find it to be completely insane that he is sitting next to a culture vulture, being a culture vulture himself, and he is expressing how it makes him feel sad that we are calling him a culture vulture, and he's expressing this to someone who does the exact same thing. And to me, it's literally insane. It's like you looking yourself in the mirror talking about why you feel the way you do.
Damn!
Now this guy is saying the same thing, like, not only are you a culture vulture, you're sitting across from another culture vulture. Like, the fact that you're doing it is insane, and I can kind of see what his point is. But at the same time, Drake is going to definitely have his supporters, and they definitely going to ride for him.
We wouldn't be able to say, man, that sounds like a bar that Drake would rap, right? Or, I don't know, like, that's a Drake type of sound, right? That's the type of a beat that Drake would rap over. We would not be able to use those phrases and they ring any truth whatsoever if Drake has not contributed significantly to the art form over these 16 years. Does that make sense to anybody?
Now, in this case, he is saying something that is very, very intelligent. He's saying if Drake doesn't have a style, how can we say that this is a Drake sounding beat? And if you go and look on YouTube, you can look for like West Coast beats, Crip Walk beats. You can look for Drake sounding style beats. And what that says is Drake has contributed at least so much to the genre of hip hop that you can know what a Drake song is like. I mean, it has some core DNA. Now, has that DNA changed, from 2005 to now in that career, or 2010 to now? Sure. But there's enough evidence that Drake has a particular sound that people are influenced by his sound, right? And if rappers, two-genre rappers, have been influenced by his sound. But wait, there's more.
There are tons of people, let's just say, that believe Jay-Z, Kanye West, Beyonce, right? I get it, different genre music, whatever, but that believe that those three artists in their own right have a very legitimate argument that they're the GOAT. They're the best to ever do it. And Drake has written songs for all of them, and in Jay-Z's case, has, rapped multiple songs with him.
This is a very good argument. The guy said, listen, if you look at Jay-Z, you look at Beyonce, you look at some of these other rappers, Kanye West, some of these people arguably are considered top 5 in their genre, the GOAT, especially if you talk about someone like Jay-Z. Some people will say that Jay-Z is the greatest rapper of all time, or at least top 5. He's definitely top 5. And Drake has written for all of these people. If it's not Beyonce, he's done it with Kanye West, he's done it with Jay-Z. So if he is creating intellectual properties for these heavyweights, what does that tell you? It definitely means he must not be a culture vulture, because he's contributing to the genre. And it's a strong point that can't be denied to a certain degree, because yes, we have to say that Drake has definitely a certain style, depending on when you want to listen to him, and definitely he has done this for certain people. But the identity, I really feel, is the identity and authenticity critique. Now, Kendrick Lamar's song, They Not Like Us, talked about this so directly, all right? Drake, his dad is from Memphis. We understand he's half black, half Jewish, half black American, and half European Jewish. And then also you you come from a middle class background, you're outsider to the culture of hip hop. This is not to say that dudes in the UK are not really with the stuff, or that dudes from Toronto ain't really with the stuff, because you can get your head knocked off in either place. And of course, when I was coming up, you know, when you would hear dudes from London, dudes from Paris, dudes from Toronto, nobody really respected that. But as we started to, you know, get more evolved, hey, London got some heavyweight dudes just like Toronto do, right? But that's not even the point. Nobody's dissing you in this area because you from Toronto or you from Vancouver. It's just the fact that you not really down with the culture because you switch accents, you switch slangs, you switch styles. So you're basically imitating other than a lived experience. And that's what Kendrick Lamar's "They Not Like Us" really was trying to get at. And Drake is acting like he doesn't do this when he does do this. Like, it's okay to be influenced by people. Like, I'm a YouTuber. I've been in the game for 10 years. My style has been influenced by a lot of people over the last decade, and it's still been influenced. But some of the things that I do, like the booty clapping sounds, those are the things that I do, right? And I don't get away from that so much. Like, you're going to hear those crazy things like,
Boy, you don't sit your stupid ass down. Who the fuck you think you is?
that's gonna be always me, right? This is what I always do. The reality is that Drake has done this so that he can stay popping, and that speaks to his ability to stay in the business and in the industry. A lot of folks have died on that lack of innovation and, you know, not understanding the times. However, the trade-off is if you have to keep stealing people's stuff to keep getting hot and doing whatever you're doing, people gonna call you a culture vulture because you are. And hip-hop has a bunch of cultures, right? It's like hip-hop is very cultural. I'm from Northern California. In Northern California, rap is different than Southern California rap. I'm gonna give a shout out to one of my homeboys from San Francisco, Lakeview, Yellowbee, right? He's a rapper. You know, he don't rap no more, but if you come to the Bay, Northern California, dudes is dancing like a lot. It's something that we do. You know what I mean? Northern California dudes, we dance like the most hardest dudes in the club dance. It's a big part of the culture. You know what I mean? Like dancing hella strings, dancing hella funny. It's just what we do. I don't know about now, but still you see a lot of men doing that. And it's real energetic. It's high energy. But that ain't the case when you go down to Southern California. It's more laid back. Dudes is not doing all that, right? Philadelphia rap culture is not as flashy or flamboyant as NYC historically. Memphis is different than the rap culture down in Nashville and different from what's in Little Rock. Baltimore is different from what's in DC. You know what I mean? And so when you steal from these cultures that are basically because of the city and what they come from, Dallas talk different than Houston. Like, people notice that. Like Dallas, I remember when Dallas wasn't even on. St. Louis with Nelly and Chingy, they got a whole different culture. And if you come in when they get hot and start stealing from them, like, and start talking like them, Chicago with drill. Like, you understand what I'm saying? And then you want to act like you're not doing that when you only waited till they got on and then basically went and collaborated with their crowd that's been busting their ass all in the streets trying to get on, and then you do that. Yeah, it is kind of some sucker stuff. I'm gonna be honest, it is some sucker stuff. And then to sit there and act like you don't do that when you do that, even though yes, you have contributed to the culture, but you do be stealing because hip hop is just not one big culture. It's a bunch of subcultures. Facts. So guys, what do you think? It's your boy Yoshi Dude Jackson back at it again with another episode of The Celebrity Junk. I appreciate you for all you do. Subscribe to the bell. We out.